Hi, Bill here. I'd like to talk about how a sacrifice can lead to the win of a material because you promote a pawn. So in this example, black's knight and the rook are defending the queening square. So white sacrifices rook for knight, removing one defender. When the rook recaptures, there are no defenders, so white promotes to a queen. And now, with best play, queen will win against rook. In this position, the black rook is defending the queening square, but it's also tied to defending the knight. So the black rook is overloaded, so white sacrifices. Now, if black takes, white will promote. If he doesn't take, white will eventually win with his passed pawn. So if black takes, white promotes, and again the queen will win against the rook. In this case, the knight is defending the queening square, so white simply sacrifices the exchange and promotes. The queen will win easily. In this case, the bishop is defending the queening square, but the king and the bishop are lined up, so white is able to make a pin. So he moves the bishop, pinning the bishop to the king, and then white is threatening to queen the pawn. Note that he's not threatening to swap bishops, which would mean the king could catch the pawn. So if black takes, white will just promote, and the queen will win. This time, the knight has trouble defending separated pawns. The knight has more chance of defending pawns which are adjacent. The further apart the pawns are, the harder it is for the short-range knight. So white advances. Black moves the knight to defend the queening square, but white just moves the other pawn, and whatever black does, white will queen one of the pawns. So in this position, the king is just too far away from the pawn, so white advances, the bishop stops the pawn, but the bishop's defending both queening squares, and the bishop is overloaded. So white promotes one of the pawns, and after the bishop takes, he'll promote the other pawn. So a bishop's not good at defending on different diagonals, but it's very good defending things on the same diagonal. Now in this case, again the bishop gets overloaded. It's trying to stop two different pawns on different diagonals. So white sacrifices his least powerful pawn, his less advanced pawns. The bishop takes it, and the other pawn promotes. Now I've got a funny situation where the king and knight are both stopping the pawn. So white sacrifices the pawn. It's discovered check, so the king's got to take it, and now white takes the knight, and king and rook against king is a win. Okay, another case of where the bishop is overloaded by two pawns. So white sacrifices his least advanced pawn. When the bishop takes it, he promotes. Now, white's got to be a little bit careful. The king is defending both the queening squares, so the king can be overloaded, but if white promotes this pawn first, the king will take, and the bishop will be defending the other queening square. So white advances the other pawn, and when the king takes, white will promote. So now, the rook attacks the rook, the king defends the rook, so the king is tied to defence. So white takes advantage of that by giving a check, so the king daren't take the pawn, otherwise white will take the rook for nothing. So black moves the king up, white swaps the rooks, and if the king takes, white promotes to a queen. If the king takes the pawn, which is the best move, white will win with king and rook against king. Now we've got a situation with a king fairly close to the pawn and the knight blocking the pawn. So, but the knight is on a poor square in the corner. Rook attacks the knight, threatening to take the knight. If the knight moves out, white can just sacrifice the exchange and promote the pawn. Now we've got a situation where king is very close to the pawn, threatening to get into the square. The rook's attacking the pawn, but white sees the possibility of a pin, So the rook moves forward, pinning the rook. So if the rook takes rook, pawn equals queen. So black defends the rook, white can swap off, and now if black takes, white will promote the pawn. So now we've got a knight fork here. So we just go in and win the rook. Now we've got a case where the king has caught the pawn, it's in the square, it's defending the queenie square, it's attacking the pawn. But white can win the rook because of a fork. There's two ways white can win this. One way is just to promote the pawn first. The other way was to do the bishop check first and then do the fork and win the rook. Sometimes move order matters, sometimes it doesn't matter. Okay, now we've got a pawn on the 7th rank, but it looks like it's blocked by the king. So what's white going to do? So white sacrifices his queen, the rook takes it, and the pawn promotes with mate. So that's the end of the section. So yeah, it was just a collection of a few simple tactics where the threat of queening a pawn gained material. Thank you for watching.